welcome to Working Lunch, the SLO Chamber's weekly series where we get to sit down with community leaders and hopefully enter the last few hours of our work week feeling a little more informed and connected with our community in these challenging times. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the SLO Chamber, and today you'll get to take a glance at the work going on with lawyer and community leader Jacqueline Frederick. In addition to her civil litigation practice, Jacqueline is a leader in several local and statewide professional organizations like the SLO County Bar Association and the California Women Lawyers Association, and is the current president of the Central Coast Trial Lawyers Association. She also serves as the CEO of the Latino Outreach Council, which is dedicated to facilitating the equal and full participation of all members of the Latino community in the life and affairs of SLO County. I'm so looking forward to talking with her about the recent Supreme Court decisions, virtual court, and what's new at the Latino Outreach Council. Thank you so much for being here, Jacqueline.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, as we sit down, first and foremost, where are you zooming in from today?
Well, I'm zooming in from beautiful Nipomo, California, at my farm up on the foothills of Nipomo. Beautiful place to shelter in place, believe me. Very lucky.
That sounds amazing. So tell us a little bit about a day in your shelter life. Who are you sheltering with? What are new parts of your day? And in general, how's it going?
It's going great. You know, just like everybody else, I've had to adjust to new normals. And the new normal seems to always be changing. But I've been very fortunate that I'm in a profession where I can work at home. The three lawyers in my law firm are working from home. We do have support staff member who is working at the office, but we're keeping her very safe there. And it's actually been very nice. I've learned a lot about myself through this process and a lot about my work ethic, and actually learned that I can have some balance in my life.
Wow, that actually is an amazing acknowledgement and finding. So congratulations.
Thank you. I feel about as good as I've ever felt in my life right now, which is really nice. Because I'm staying healthy and emotionally and physically healthy.
Terrific. And so before we dig into all the amazing things going on locally, I wanted to just kick us off here and take a moment to talk about the Supreme Court's recent landmark DACA decision on the heels of the LGBTQ decision. And so for those who may not be familiar, can you just share, even though there's no way to really be a quick overview of this, but the most concise overview of the impact of the DACA ruling?
Well, I'm happy to do that because sometimes what we hear on the media, oh, by the way, I raised peacocks, so no one's being murdered in the background here. I told them I was going to be on this conference and they should be quiet, but you know. Anyway, we hear a lot about DACA from the media, and so it's really nice to have this opportunity to really talk about what was the real issue before the U.S. Supreme Court. And before I launch into that, you know, as a human being, as a immigrant daughter, both my families were immigrants to this country, and as CEO of Latino Outreach Council, I strongly support DACA. And I strongly support that that should be the law of our land because it's the right thing to do. These children were brought here through no fault of their own. We live in a country where for many years now, the immigration laws have not been enforced. And so people have been allowed to live here without documentation or going through the immigration process. So that being said, it's the right thing to do. The issue now has been process, because what President Obama did in 2012 is he essentially exceeded his constitutional authority by using his executive powers, which presidents do have, to create this law without going through the legislative process. And immigration laws are handled and should be handled through the legislative process. It is within their purview. So the challenge that this administration made was to undo that, because even Obama admitted it was illegal, to undo that, and then to have the process go through the legislative process to pass DACA. I think he is on record saying that's what he supports, it going through a legislative process. And there was, we may recall back, there were some attempts to do that, but our legislators did not follow through and seize that opportunity to do it. The issue before the US Supreme Court was whether or not the process was the proper process to be used. And what I can, I will actually read this to you, that the reason the Trump administration lost wasn't on the issue of whether or not DACA is good policy or bad policy. In fact, I will quote Justice Roberts: "We do not decide whether DACA or its rescission are sound policies. The wisdom of those decisions is none of our concern. We address only whether the agency," referring to the Trump agency, "complied with the procedural requirement that it provide a reasonable explanation for its action." So when a sitting president does his executive orders, those executive orders are in place for the term of that presidency. The next president can do his or her own executive orders. However, to undo a previous president's executive order, there is a process, and it's called the Administrative Procedure Act. The Supreme Court said that the Trump lawyers, the Trump agency that prosecuted this case, did not follow the Administrative Procedure Act. And so that's really where we're at today. Now, do I like the fact that DACA is in place still? Yes, I've already explained what my personal viewpoint is on it. And really, DACA is widely supported across party lines and by a majority of people in this country. Obviously, there's some that don't, but I think everybody recognizes the justice in a DACA and DAPA, which came about in 2014, another executive order that dealt with the parents of such immigrants.
And so that was the interesting part, I think, of the decision, right, is that unlike maybe the LGBTQ decision that kind of enforces a law that probably will have a tough time being overturned, this is kind of a mixed bag of reactions, right? Because yes, for right now it's okay, but they did make clear in there that it can be taken away because it's done right now as an executive or an executive action, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And so now the agency needs to decide whether they're going to go through the Administrative Procedure Act and go through the process again. Really what needs to happen are legislators, and this takes both sides of the aisle to do this. They need to make it the law of the land. I have said this many times when I've been interviewed about immigration policy. Both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, love to use immigration as a political football because they, especially in an election season. So I just hope and pray that our legislators get together on this super, super important topic, not to mention following through with immigration policies that across the board, which we also need.
Yeah, of course. And it's so important for our labor workforce, for the people who are here to feel secure. It's an incredibly important topic. So I agree with you 100%. We need to those folks need to come together and do some work to get that. It will be hard, but I agree with you 100% on that. Interestingly enough, all of this happened, as I understand it, I think remotely. The Supreme Court acted virtually. A first, obviously, in the history of that storied institution. Are other courts also moving forward remotely?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm on a committee right now with our Superior Court here in San Luis Obispo to kind of set some parameters on how we're going to go forward. The expectation when you see what's happening with COVID-19 and sadly, the direction we're headed, and this was the prognostication that it would get worse before it got better, is this situation is going to be here for a while. So what do we do as lawyers? And it's been very difficult because criminal cases, there's a constitutional right for criminal cases to move forward. There's a constitutional right to a speedy trial. They're going to take precedent. I'm a civil trial lawyer. All the civil cases, those are the cases involving personal injury, product liability, breaches of contract, you know, all this other stuff that our courts handle, which is a lot, are going to be put on the back burner until next year. And so that has, you know, justice delayed is justice denied. And it's a very difficult situation. It's unprecedented. So we are actually working right now. We've had a system in place to do call-ins, so you could call in for hearings. And very shortly, we're going to be moving into a mandatory Zoom court appearance situation. The courtrooms right now are set up for criminal cases, allowing for the separation, the 6 feet separation, et cetera. The big challenge, juries and jury trials, huge. That issue has not yet been completely resolved. The court is working on it. The committee that I'm on, we're working on it. And we're hoping by September to have some answer, because even in criminal cases, there is a right to a jury trial, a trial by jury of your peers, and that's a constitutional right. So this is very, very important. And yet at the same time, the court has to balance that with the health, safety, and well-being of all of the participants in the courtroom process.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that piece about the jury. Certainly you can't zoom in as a juror, right? If you're in your house, you have access to other things other than what's happening right in front of you in the courtroom.
Yeah, there are some courts that have tried it. In Houston, they have tried it in the federal court. The federal courts have tried it. It has its issues. I mean, any of us that do Zoom meetings, I do Zoom depositions now, Zoom mediations now, we know glitches happen, right? So, you know, there's that. And there's also the issue you just raised, which is, you know, they could be looking online. A juror could be looking online at something on their PDF, you know, while, you know, I mean, on their phone while they're sitting listening to a case. They could be distracted and not paying attention. And as a trial lawyer, I can tell you, my role among others is I want to make a connection with each and every juror, and doing it remotely, I don't see how I can make that connection. It's difficult. And, you know, my job is, you know, do the best I can for my client. And in my view, if I have to go to a jury trial, I really need it to be an in-person, and I'm going to wait. I have to be patient and I have to wait. And so do my clients, which is not always easy because, you know, they've got serious issues.
Yeah, I can certainly hear you from the connection. It's you can do, there's only so much you can do over Zoom to create a personal connection with someone, and you definitely want to you know, engage a juror, you know, face to face. So that I can understand that will be a difficult time, and hopefully we'll get to some solution there where you could either distance or something, but I can understand that being an incredibly difficult part of the discussion.
Yeah, so some of the issues is, do we lessen the number of jurors, but then we still have the issue of the voir dire of the jurors. I mean, these are all the things we're talking about, and we will come to a solution, and hopefully, you know, within the next year, we will have, you know, some medical progress with regard to inoculations for this, you know, terrible virus.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The word that was escaping me was inoculations and vaccinations. So yeah, very interesting stuff happening at the courts as we're all learning to kind of deal with this differently. So besides your work, obviously you're the CEO of the Latino Outreach Council, and they've been promoting, you know, progress in the Latino community through advancement in education, participation in community affairs, and through increasing knowledge about and access to relevant services since 1994, right?
Absolutely. Since 1994, this organization's been around. Like many organizations that have been around for a long time, it went through a little period of quietness. And then, you know, about 8 years ago, I got involved. And anyway, so I was president for a number of years, and now I'm CEO because I really want to keep working on this. And interestingly, 8 years ago when I decided to get involved, I could never have predicted how prescient and important the issue of our immigrant community would be, and it has become. It's one of the major issues in our society today across the nation.
Absolutely. And so was there something that triggered you to get involved? I mean, or is it just kind of your legal background, you know, justice, looking for those pieces?
Well, justice is a big part of it, and I'm very proud of my immigrant roots. I'm Colombian. My mother was born and raised in Colombia, South America. I speak Spanish. I was raised in an immigrant household. After my mother passed away, I just decided that I've done a lot of volunteer work in the community, and I just decided that this was a topic that I really wanted to get involved in because I've lived it, and my mother and father lived it. And I'm close to it, and I'm so happy. It's one of the best things that I do. Really, I'm very proud of what we've done with the Latino Outreach Council and what we continue to do.
And so one of the things that I found interesting, that it seems that COVID has had a disproportionate impact on the Latino community, and the Latino Outreach Council has been instrumental in helping educate our Spanish-speaking community members about the virus. Was that just a natural extension of the work you'd already been doing, or a brand new endeavor?
So it is true. Marion Hospital is one of the hospitals designated to handle COVID-19 cases. And they are, and I happen to be on that board, by the way. I'm on the hospital board for Marion and Arroyo Grande. So I'm privy to some of the data, and I'm privy to what's going on. But literally, they're telling me that close to 90% of the cases they're seeing at Marion are from the Hispanic Latino community. And they, of course, from a medical standpoint, they really want the message to get out to the Hispanic community about how important it is that they stay at home, that they use the 6 feet separation, social separation, that they wear the masks, the sanitation of the hands, all of that we've been hearing over and over again. So, I met with my board, of course, via Zoom, and we said we need to do something. And we contracted with Valerie Mercado of Noble Productions, and we asked her if she could help us. And she was instrumental, and we created 2 public service announcements. One is a beautiful video that's aired on Spanish television about this, and then we also did a radio ad. And so we've been putting that out, and I will tell you that the Dignity Health people are very happy, and they're helping to promote it too, because the word needs to get out there. And the more avenues that this message reaches out to them, including the promotores, that are the head of the promotores is on our board, we get that message out, the better it is for everybody.
Well, and I know, as you were just talking there, doing your meetings via Zoom, and I know you've also been holding digital events centered on everything from educating children at home to arts and music. How's that gone? And is there a technology divide that is made that, as you said, your job has been great because you can do the Zoom and digital, but has there been in the Latino community a digital divide?
I would say indeed, yes. So one of the reasons that we're seeing the high numbers in the Latino community is not only maybe the lack of knowledge, but it's also they are essential workers. Many of the Latino community, as we well know, work in the fields, work in the farms. They're not sitting at an office or at home where they can participate in these. They work long, hard hours, physical work for most of them, and then they go home. If English is a second language for them, that's going to be difficult. So yes, I agree. There's definitely a digital divide for a number of reasons, but one of them is language barrier, and the other one is time to access something like time and the inclination to spend your time at home accessing that when really you come home and you're cooking and you're taking care of children. It's an issue. Many of the farm workers in Santa Maria area particularly, you have multiple families living in single family homes. So there's a lot of issues that uniquely affect the Latino community.
And it definitely is something, as we talk about housing in our community and our region, is so important, because it does work to that point. If we don't have affordable housing, we're almost helping contribute to the spread, because families have to live together, because there aren't the appropriate housing levels and affordability for folks who are doing the essential work. Has that been something that the Latino Outreach Council has been active in?
Absolutely. In fact, last year, that was one of our educational forums, was housing, and we had the leadership from all of the major organizations, People's Self-Help Housing and others, to talk about what are the alternatives and the options that can be considered to provide affordable housing. And it's difficult, because if you're a developer and you're doing housing, you're trying to earn money, and that's understandable. Absolutely. Those developments are very expensive. You've got market forces that are at play. And so really we have to look at some creative ways to create affordable housing. And some of those, for example, I just heard that Grover Beach is going to be looking at more accessible dwelling units and allowing secondary dwelling units. That was in today's news. And this is the thing I think all of our municipalities need to look at the county level and at the city levels, is how can we be creative with regard to affordable housing?
Yeah, major issue. So glad to hear that that these things are coming up, because we have to do better for all of our residents. A few weeks ago, you spoke at the NAACP rally. Can you share a little bit about why this intersectional advocacy and solidarity is so important?
Absolutely. I was very proud and humbled that Cheryl and Steve Vines invited me to be one of the keynote speakers at that event. I never imagined that there would be over 3,000 people there. I will say, in all the public speaking I've done, that's the largest crowd ever. I really enjoyed it. Mostly young people that I could see in the audience, and that's who I wanted to speak to, because young people are our future. And I also wanted to give them positive ways in which they can make a positive difference. It's unfortunate that we have, I don't know how you want to characterize them, anarchists, some people doing really bad things, and I don't know what's behind all that, but it's not furthering a justifiable cause. And the justifiable cause is we need to look at race differently in this country. And I don't think there's any question that we have a history in this country where people from all different backgrounds historically have been discriminated against. You might remember the Italians, the Irish. It's just been this way. It's ridiculous. And I think in today's day and age, we recognize that that's just not the right way to live our lives. And I wanted the Black lives and my Black friends and the Black leadership to know that the Latinos, we feel your pain, because Latinos have been discriminated against as well. And we want to be in this together to help create and foster positive change. And that was my basic message, in my speech. And I'm very happy that I was able to do that. It
was, fabulous. And it's really one of the things I wanted to ask, because we were both former Angelinos, and one of the things that I'm not sure gets enough play or shown as frequently. I know there was just a recent shooting of a young man in LA named Andres. Justice for Andres is going on right now. But go back all the way to like the Zoot Suit riots. It doesn't seem like it gets as much press or acknowledgement. Is there, I'd love to get your thoughts on why that is, or what do we need to do to highlight that also? So
what are you referring to in terms of highlighting?
Well, just that it becomes knowledgeable in the public that this is happening across all races, and that the Latino community is also facing some of these same things. Yes,
absolutely. You know, one thing, I think that our law enforcement folks have an extreme challenge. There are some really bad people out there that do really bad things, and they literally put their life on the line every time they stop a car. They don't know who's in that car. So they're trained in a certain way. On the other hand, I really support a lot of the things that Chief Cantrell has been doing for years now, because I serve on her committee, her PACT committee. One of our LOC members attends that regularly. And she's been ahead of since Ferguson, she's been ahead of it. We need to change the philosophy of how law enforcement approaches people of color. Because the statistics are there, right? The statistics are there. And on the other hand, we have to respect the fact that they're in a very dangerous occupation, and they don't know who is on, who they're encountering, and they have to be very careful too. But I love the idea of community policing, of people in the community getting to know the police officers and the sheriff deputies, and having that kind of a connection where, we're all working together for safety. And I think certain policies that have been changed now, I think are good. The chokehold, the carotid artery, chokehold, these things that have the potential to be deadly. I know that officers are trained that if they have to use their weapon, they have to, shoot to kill. And I just think maybe we need to change that. We need to look at different ways in which they can do their job and keep the public safe.
Fabulous. Well, our half hour's flown by, and I can't believe we're already towards the end, but I want to end on kind of a little personal question we always like to ask. What are you looking forward to this weekend? Is there anything great happening for you?
Well, one of the things that I've done is I've taken on a few hobbies I didn't have before. One of my hobbies before COVID-19 was tango dancing, which obviously I can't do that anymore. So I had to find some other way to amuse myself. So I've taken up boxing for one thing. So I will be doing some of that. It's online. And then my other favorite thing that I've been doing now is boogie boarding. So every Sunday I boogie board with a group of women, and I'm having a blast with that. So that's my fun thing I look forward to every Sunday morning.
That's awesome. That sounds like a blast. Good for you.
It is a blast.
Well,
rediscovered a youthful enjoyment that I used to enjoy so much in Southern California.
and you can do it here, and it's gorgeous. Maybe except during June gloom, a little cooler. But yeah, Jacqueline, thank you so much for eating lunch with us today. We will be taking a break next week to all of you, but I hope to see you July 10th, same time, same place, when we sit down with the iFixit co-founder and CEO, Kyle Wiens, to talk about supply chain challenges, what it's like to compile the world's largest collection of medical device repair manuals, and his ongoing advocacy for the right to repair. If you have an idea for a future working lunch guest, send us an email at slochamber@slochamber.org. Once again, Jacqueline, thank you so much for giving us all that great information. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.